Today, I am very glad to talk about Chinese clay sculpture. To begin with, I am going to talk about the historical development. The development of Chinese clay sculpture started from the Neolithic period. In the Han Dynasty, clay sculpture became an essential type of art. A large number of cultural relics have been unearthed from the Han Dynasty tombs, including pottery figurines, pottery beasts, pottery carriages, pottery boats, and so on. The ancestors of the Han Dynasty believed that the deceased, like the living, also have material needs. Therefore, lots of mortuary objects were needed in funeral ceremonies, which has promoted the development of clay sculpture. After the Han dynasties, the rise of Taoism and the introduction of Buddhism, the appearance of the polytheistic worship activities, and the rise of Taoist and Buddhist temples directly contributed to the increased demand for clay sculpture and the development of clay sculpture art. By the Tang Dynasty, the art of clay sculpture had reached its peak. Yang Huizhi, known as the master of sculpture, was an outstanding representative at that time. He and Wu Daozi followed the same teacher, Zhang Sengyou. While Wu became a master, Yang was unwilling to lag behind. Thus, he burned his ink brush and inkstone, concentrated and worked hard on sculpture, and eventually became a famous artist. In the Song dynasty, not only did large Buddha statues continue to prosper, but small clay toys also developed. There were many people who specialized in making clay figurines and selling them as commodities. After the Yuan dynasty, through the Ming, Qing, and the Republic of China, clay sculptures still circulated in the society, especially small ones that can be both displayed for appreciation and played with by children. Clay sculptures were produced in almost all parts of the country, among which the famous places were Wuxi, Huishan clay figure, Tianjin clay figure Zhang, Fengxiang, Shanxi, Baigou, Hebei, Gaomi, Shandong, Junxian, Henan, Huaiyang, and Beijing. Now I'll talk about the schools of clay sculpture. The development of Chinese clay sculpture art is mainly indebted to the folk customs. That clay sculptures were used as substitutes for the living buried with the dead, as Buddha statues for worship, and as objects to be played with. By the Tang and Song dynasties, the art of clay sculpture developed to its heyday, with famous clay sculptures such as the Bodhisattva from the Mogao grottos in Dunhuang, Gansu province, and the palace maid from the Jingci Temple in Taiyuan, Shanxi province. In the Qing dynasty, there were two famous schools of clay sculpture in the north and south. In the north, there was clay figure Zhang in Tianjin, and in the south, there was Huishan clay figure in Wuxi. Clay figure Zhang refers to Zhang Changling, a clay sculptor in Tianjin. His works were characterized by their realistic nature, with the modeling, voice, and expression, and the color decoration of characters, all emphasizing verisimilitude. His son, Zhang Zhaorong, and grandson, Zhang Jingju, have inherited their family business and made contributions to the art of Chinese clay sculpture. Huishan clay figures can be divided into two categories. One is the clay goods for children to play with, and the big afu is the most typical. The figures are plump and vigorous with round simple lines and bright warm colors, which create a strong local flavor. The other category is the handmade opera that mainly includes opera characters. This type of clay sculpture emphasizes the portrayal of different bearing of various characters and exaggerates properly the modeling of figures. Combined with its skilled techniques and plain, strong colors, it indeed exhibits distinctive features of the southern part of China. Famous modern clay sculpture artists include Hu Xingming, Wang Zhongfu, Yu Yingcheng, and others, and places like Fengxiang in Shanxi, Baigou River in Hebei, and Huqiu in Suzhou are famous for important regions of folk clay sculptures. And now I'm going to talk about the production of clay sculpture. The typical procedure of making mudman sculptures includes preparing the material, modeling, and color painting. Regarding the selection of materials, the thicker and less sandy clay is the favorite. Sometimes the craftsmen add some cotton fiber, paper, honey, and so on to the clay. The collected clay can only become usable material after going through very sophisticated processing. Molding is a crucial process that can define the proportionality and characteristics of a clay sculpture. The clay can only become a vivid figure sculpture after delicate dealings with details. Although photography did not exist in the ancient era, mud sculpture could vividly depict human characteristics. The crux here was to grasp the looks of the figures. Thanks to their skillfulness, the craftsmen were able to adeptly translate into vivid mud figures. Color painting is the next procedure. By applying painting tactics, color painting can enrich the details of the molded sculpture, the most important part of which is to paint the eyes of the mudman sculpture. Such a step can impart a sense of life into the steel sculpture. As one Chinese folk saying goes, 30% of a perfect mudman sculpture has something to do with molding, while the remaining 70% depends on color painting. This just attests to the importance of color painting in mud sculpture making. Generally, before color painting, a layer of base color is applied to keep the surface smooth and clean, so that the color can be easily absorbed. Besides, vegetable dyes are usually adopted as pigments of color painting, and water glue is also used to strengthen the adhesion of the color. And now, I am going to wrap up the discussion of this section with the modern Chinese clay sculpture. Nowadays, folk clay sculpture is faced with three important problems. The first is the change of consumer groups. For thousands of years, the main consumers of folk clay sculptures have been rural people. But in the process of industrialization and urbanization, the main consumers have gradually become urbanized. This is a problem that clay sculpture artists should pay special attention to in the future. The change of consumer groups has directly led to changes in the function of folk clay sculptures. Compared with modern toys made of various materials, folk clay sculptures no longer holds an advantage in terms of its entertainment function. People are more concerned about whether the clay sculptures look modern and whether the materials are healthy. Finally, in the transition from a traditional society to a modern society, the long-established folk customs begin to fade or even to disappear, and some folk clay sculptures become useless. Nevertheless, the contemporary variation of folk culture also provides new opportunities for the development of clay sculpture. For example, Hu Pengfei, the founder of Jitufang, introduced new modeling, packaging, and sales concepts into the development and mass production of clay sculpture. So, in our lecture, we have talked about the historical development, the various schools of clay sculpture, the production of clay sculpture, and the problems facing Chinese modern clay sculpture. This is the end of our lecture. Thank you for your time and attention. So I will see you in our next lecture on Chinese culture.